Hey guys, Cows here. This is a build guide for my 3.7 Double Strike Slayer. Long story short, I didn't want to go into Legion blind, and I wanted to see how an endgame melee build would perform. So I hopped on standard, got a bunch of my gear together, and slapped it on this guy, and changed the tree to you know optimize the gear, and it actually worked out really well. The build does stupid amounts of damage. It's stupid fast. Uh, it's just really good. So I figured I made a build guide for it. My gear is actually very good in certain slots and average in others, but you can simulate the build's damage. I'm using a lot of gear on standard, but you can simulate like 75%, 85% of this build's damage with you know relatively good gear in league, right? And if you have great gear in league, you could probably just get as much, if not beat this build in terms of damage. Long story short, the build is league viable, and it's obviously better in standard, as are most builds. But you can totally play this in league with very minimal change in DPS, and you'll see that you'll melt bosses just the same. It'll map just as fast, and so on. So it's a Slayer. So let's go into why we choose Slayer. Really, the big deal here is Overwhelm. The base crit chance for weapons is 8%. If you look at the weapons we use, it's 5.5 and 5.8, so lower comparative base crit chance. So this node boosts our base crit, which is very good. And then the rest of our strike chance, increased crit strike chances will base off the base 8% crit chance. So it'll be a significant boost to our overall total percent crit chance. Headsman, it can be summed up as more damage and more damage, and increased damage and more damage. Long story short, increased damage, more damage, increased damage, movement speed, calling strike. That's pretty much what this side here is. Just damage, calling strike, attack speed, movement speed. This side, increased damage, increased weapon range, increased area of effect, more damage. Right. So this tree basically gives us, if we sum it up, more damage because of crit and multi, more damage because of attack speed, and specifically more damage because we have increased attack speed and movement speed, and this thing is more damage, right? So the Ascendancy gives us a ton of damage. That's the whole point of the build. We just want to click things and have them die. Okay, so the rest of the passive tree. We take all the damage here, we go down here, we got some life, some attack speed, we come down here, we take more damage, we come over here, grab life and a jewel socket, some resistances. My jewel isn't particularly great. I mean, it's okay. It's increased damage with axes, which I am not using. Attack speed, and multi. So it's effectively a 3-property jewel. This is more damage, and increased melee range. Dex, life, more dex, mana leech because we need mana leech, and then more damage all along here. I also take this one dexterity node because I need extra dexterity, and I didn't really have any other good places to do it. So if you see one, let me know. This is life leech, even though I have some on my gear. Wanted a little bit extra. Jewel socket, life, attack speed, res, get whatever you need there. Attack speed, life down here. Some more dex because I needed dex. Melee, crit strike chance, melee multi down here, more damage. And this is some crit multi and crit strike chance. Life, impale, which is what I'm going to spec into. This character's only level 85, so I still have to get this tree right here. I still have to fill out this life, and I still have to get these 3 nodes. Sorry, it's been a long day. I'm tired. More damage over here. More multi, damage, max life, more life. And then melee crit, melee multi. That's pretty much it. So in summary, the tree is just a bunch of life, bunch of damage, bunch of attack speed, some quality of life stuff in terms of res, and like increased melee range, and then some mana leech, and some extra like stat nodes that we might need. That's pretty much it. Okay, on to the gear. So we are obviously a fizz-based build, right? That's why we're scaling all these fizz-based nodes. We do not convert, so we are 100% physical damage. So ways to scale physical damage, there are some old and some new. Some of the new ways are with things like Pride. Pride reads nearby enemies take at least 18% more physical damage, raising up to 37% as they stay in the aura. Sorry, it's been a long day. I'm really yawning. Flesh and Stone is pretty interesting. So in Blood Stance, nearby enemies are maimed, and those maimed enemies take 15% increased physical damage. This is important because if we don't deal 15% increased physical damage, the enemies take 15% increased physical damage, so it's a much bigger deal. It's a more multiplier to the damage they take. How else do we do some stuff? We use the Impale Gem, which I'll go over later. It's one of the new things that's implemented to scale our damage. And I think that's it as far as new stuff. So on to the old stuff, right? We use a high PDPS weapon. I have an old jeweled foil. It happens to have weapon range on it. This is pretty good. Obviously, you want a high PDPS weapon in both slots. Before they changed the melee nerf, or before they nerfed melee stat sticking, you didn't need 2 high PDPS one-handers. You only needed 1. So before I was using a stat stick or a Rigwald Savagery. So now we have to use 2 high PDPS one-handers. I don't have a second like juicy jeweled foil, so I'm just using an Onsmite temporarily. It has a high base damage and the crit strike chance is low but made up for by the Slayer Ascendancy, so it's actually a pretty good choice for the build. It has a high. Like this thing has a top end of 350, this thing has a top end of 390, right? But this also has some other added stuff to it. So like comparable for sure. For the helm, I'm using an Abyssus. This is probably the optimal choice in League 2. I have a Legacy variant. The version that currently exists is maxed at 125. You see here that I have a 220, right? So again, Legacy variant, extra damage in Standard. Not available in League, but still just as good. The bad mod on here is the increased physical damage taken. Try and get as low of a roll as you can, because you can get clapped by some stuff. So Amulet. I'm just using an amulet that gives me a bunch of added damage. So max life, aspect of the cat, multi, and double added as extra. Right, the percent increased life regenerated is good, but not relevant. So just the kind of a dead stat on there. Rings, I'm using lots of fizz damage, max life res. On both of them, I'm going, max life res, and then I'm getting some other quality of stuff that I might need. So I got some strength, I got some more strength, and I got some Elarion mods in both my rings. So the reason we have to do this is something I'll explain now. So I have -8 here and -9 here. If you look at my mana reserved, which obviously is not correct right now. If you look at my mana reserved, I have 6 mana. And if you look at Double Strike, it costs 6. So this is the only way that I can realistically cast Double Strike while my mana is reserved like this, right? So you need the Elrond mods to be able to do this. You can also get, instead of a Ferul's Fur, an Elder Astral Plate with some of the Elder mods like minus total cost of mana, or minus mana cost of skills, the Aura mod, Maim, whatever. But I couldn't figure out a way to generate power frenzy charges reliably without getting like a synthesized item. So I just used Ferul's Fur in this slot because it lets me do that. It also makes Cat's Stealth cost nothing, which allows me to slot in an extra aura like Herald of Ash. So Ferul's Fur gives life, gives us power and frenzy charge generation, and the 0 reservation for aspect of the cat's kind of nice. Gloves, I'm using a Series Acuity. This is a standard only option. It's life and mana leech from crit strike chance is instant, right? So this is a really good option if you're a standard player. But if you're not, if you're a league player, you can use Tomb Fist. You can use rare gear with max life res, like some sort of spiked gloves or something like that. For the belt, okay, so we're using Stygian Vise, max life, try res, increase damage. It's very generic. Get your res here, get your life here, and then get a decent Abyss Jewel. Mine has life, fizz damage, attack speed. Titan Greaves, so I couldn't figure out a good way to get Onslaught. I happen to have some synthesized boots with Onslaught and movement speed. I ended up using that specifically for the Onslaught mod. Again, just get some res and max life here. Mine aren't particularly good, but they fit the build enough, so I'm using them. So that's the gear. That's literally everything. So onto the flasks. Since Rebirth, it gives us 30% of physical damage as extra chaos damage, right? So pretty good. Taste of Fate, this is a legacy version. The new versions are 20% across the board. This is a 30%, but they do the same thing. They give you some fizzes extra, and they also give you fizz taken as cold. The reason we use this is because we take increased physical damage from Abyssus. Using this will help mitigate some of that extra fizz damage taken as, because it'll apply it to our cold resistance. Bottle of Faith is a standard only option. It gives you base crit and increased damage for enemies taken while standing on consecrated ground. This is not available in League. In League, you should probably just use an Atziri's Promise or Curse Immune Flask, something like that. Experimenter's Diamond Flask of Heat gives us freeze immunity. The prefix is somewhat irrelevant, so this could be a whatever Diamond Flask of Heat. Again, Quicksilver Flash of Staunching. Would use this for the bleed immunity. The prefix on this is irrelevant. This is going to be a whatever Quicksilver Flash of Staunching. Ideally, I guess the surgeons. It's up to you. So that's that. That's the items. So onto the skills. Ancestral Protector, Faster Casting Dash. This is a mirrored item. I couldn't swap the gem colors, so the socket colors. So I was stuck trying to figure out what to put here. I ended up slotting in Ancestral Protector because I didn't know what else, and then I slotted in Dash. I couldn't find anything to support either one of them realistically as a blue gem, so I just stuck in Faster Casting because Dash is technically a skill and has a cast time. On this slot, I have cast when damage taken, Immortal Call, increased duration, summon Ice Golem. I'm still not sure if this is like the optimal setup. This is something I was using before 3.7 hit, so don't quote me on this. You might want to use a new guard skill like Steel Skin, but I haven't done any testing. But this is what I've been using. Also, these supports are way too high leveled. This is just a setup I had from another character, so realistically, these should be level like 5, 6, 7, 8, or something like that. But you know, it's up to you. Whatever level you want to level them to. I usually do 1/3 of my effective hit points. Onto the 6-link setup, we have Double Strike, Fortify, Ruthless, Multi-Strike, Melee Splash, and Impale. Oftentimes, when I'm clearing maps, I run with Melee Splash, but when I'm doing bosses, I swap Melee Splash for Melee Physical Damage support, just to get a little bit more extra damage on bosses. Not that the build needs it though. You can clear all bosses with Melee Splash in the 6-link. Impale is something I'm messing with. You could choose to not run Impale and not take it on your tree and instead run a more multiplier like Melee Fizz or Brutality or Close Combat, something like that. But note that Close Combat actually doesn't work with Vol Double Strike because Vol Double Strike technically summons minions and Close Combat specifically says does not work with skills that summon minions. So if you're using Close Combat, know that. But you know, any other more multiplier here would work. I'm using Impale because some nerd on Reddit did some math, and it seems like Impale is a good way to go for bossing. So I'm using it in a setup to test for Uber Elder damage. So that'll be a video to come. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue running it, but it seems good so far. Other link, Haste, Portal, Herald of Ash, just in there, so I can use Fall Haste. And Herald of Ash, you know, needed to be slotted somewhere. I could actually make this and Enlighten and get a little bit more mana, so I don't have to reserve exactly 6 mana, but this build works out as is, and I kind of need a place to put the Portal Gem, so this works out. I guess I could put the Portal Gem over here. Maybe that's actually a slight optimization I can make. Wow, we're learning stuff as we make the build guide. I'm sure I have like an Enlighten level 3 in here somewhere. Hey, there we go. Bam, mana. 18 mana, sick. Alright. So, that's that. Those are the gems, those are the items, that's the passive tree. The Ascendancy, Pantheon's largely irrelevant. You can do whatever you want. And, yeah. Oh, so Bandit, I take Oak or Alira or Kill All. You can do anything. Just, you know, use the bandits to fit your needs. For this specific setup, I killed all. Alright, that's it. Bye.